I started my project the way most research projects begin. I sharpened my pencils and made a list of questions. I was designing for healthcare in rural India, and it felt obvious that the right thing to do was to visit a lot of hospitals, ask a lot of questions, and take a lot of notes. So I went in with my notepad and all the confidence of a designer who was ready to study a system. I was in a small local hospital in suburban Bihar, and I thought I'd be collecting data. But what I ended up collecting was silence. Because the system I found didn't care about my questions. It was moving too fast, it was too stretched, and too tired. I stood there, pen in hand, while the world moved around me without asking for permission. Until someone turned to me and said, "Can you hold this?" offering me a piece of cloth. It was one corner of a bedsheet, and I saw 3 other people holding a corner each. On the bedsheet lay an unconscious man, and he needed to be moved from the car into the hospital. For the next 10 minutes, we carried him through corridors, ramps, wards, hospital forms, and frankly, uncertainty. I stopped taking notes as my hands became full, and those 10 minutes gave me more answers than all the interviews I had been chasing through the week. I realized I couldn't study the system from the outside. To understand it, I had to live like the people inside it. So, I ate with doctors, rode behind them on scooters, joined patient rounds to try and carry what they carried, both literally and emotionally. I felt a shift in energy as we walked through the villages with these doctors. How people looked and hoped to grab attention, not like a celebrity, but like gravity. I watched them decode prescriptions sketched in circles and arrows, coordinate entire wards without visibility, just rhythm and instinct. It allowed me to participate, improvise, and respond in the moment like everyone else. The truth was, everyone was doing more than their role required. Not because they had to, because someone had to. And none of it could be captured in a form or in an interview transcript. There comes a point when your notes stop making sense. All frameworks fall away, and all that's left is you, trying to think like them. We all have an ability to step into someone else's mind, to feel their emotions, reasonings, and instincts. Psychologists call this perspective-taking theory. It's a simple but powerful idea that as we grow, we begin to understand how others think, feel, and act, not just us. Gradually learning to hold multiple minds in a single mind. But the best designers in history didn't stop there. They stretched this theory further by intentionally building a muscle to experience lives like other people. They don't use the skill just to understand others. They use it to inherit their instinct and intuition. Let me give you some examples. Agatha Christie is one of the best-selling authors of murder mystery books. During the First World War, she volunteered as a nurse and pharmacy assistant in her local hospital. Alone in the dispensary, she learned the details of every poison, grinding them, measuring them, and mixing them, till this routine became meditative. And that is where the stories came to her, in the quiet. She wasn't just writing about crime. She was living inside this world of grief, moral complexity, and silence. And that is what made her intuition feel real. Her intuition was never in plotting the murder. It was in embodying the stillness before it. Similarly, Laszlo Polgar, a psychologist, believed intelligence wasn't inherited. It could be designed through environment. So he and his wife turned their living home into a living experiment. An immersive world built around chess. Walls were lined with puzzles, conversations revolved around historic games, and daily life followed chess grandmasters. Every detail in the house was intentional, designed to think like their opponent, to anticipate, adapt, and decide with instinct, not memorization. They didn't just learn chess, they lived inside the minds of these champions. The results of this experiment were historic. The eldest daughter, Susan, became the first female grandmaster in traditional tournaments. and the younger daughter, Judith, went on to defeat 11 world champions. That's what perspective taking makes possible. Not imitation, but intuition. And sometimes the fastest way to expand your own mind is probably to try on someone else's. You probably don't need to go that far to be a good designer. You don't need to mix poisons or race chess prodigies. But designers are already trained to do something very fascinating, to shift our center of gravity, to step outside our assumptions and sometimes outside ourselves. Unlike most disciplines that operate from the inside out, starting from fixed expertise and pushing solutions outward, design asks something else entirely: to step out and re-enter the problem, maybe through someone else's point of view. We enter real worlds, hospital wards, grocery stores, supply chains, and return not with opinions, but with artifacts, tangible empathy, sublime strategy translated into form. Studies show that these teams outperform others by 2:1 in just framing the problem. Not because they are more creative, but because they are trained to see sideways. And that is why the skill, the ability to switch minds, must be cultivated. And it must be cultivated by the designer. Because no one else is practically positioned to do it. Not the executive, not the engineer, not the analyst. Modernist M.F. Hussain said, "The job of an artist is not to show what is there, but what is felt." So maybe the most radical thing a designer can do is not to draw, but to carry. To hold the bedsheet and with it the weight of another's world. I learned that the day someone handed me a corner of one. No sticky notes or diagrams, just one hospital corridor and 4 people carrying someone who couldn't carry themselves. In that moment, I wasn't a designer with a plan. I was a part of the system, reacting, helping, and learning. And when I let go of what I had planned for, I started becoming the designer the moment asked for. I started thinking like a doctor, and I became a designer. Thank you.